Hi and welcome back to another video. If this is your first time here, my name is Rachel. This is my channel, Wildwood, Vagabond. It's about time that I share my story with you. I've been promising it for a while now and I've gotten several requests. So here it is. I've been through some really tough things and I really hope to encourage someone by sharing my story, and that you can see that there's hope. And no matter what you're going through, no matter how difficult or dark that it is, I want you to know that there is hope. This video today is made possible by Skillshare. It's an online learning community and it has over 15,000 different courses that I hadn't heard of it before, and I'm super excited about it because I've already started courses on Premiere Pro. That has been a huge source of frustration for me. I've been so frustrated because I want to learn it so bad, and there's some decent tutorials on YouTube, but that's it. They're just tutorials. This is an actual course. It was structured and is taught by a professional, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm like, yes, there's hope, I can do this. So you can get a 2-month trial for free. The link is going to be in the description. After your 2-month free trial, it's only like a little less than $10 a month for the Premiere membership. So go ahead and check it out. And a little disclaimer up front: if sexual assault, sexual violence, rape, anything to do with drugs, suicide, anything like that as a trigger for you, I just kindly recommend that you would find another video to watch today, because I will be sharing those things that I went through, and I would not want to, cause someone to be upset or something like that. I had a really good childhood. Both of my parents worked really hard to provide for us everything that we could want or need. And we did a lot of family things together, and I have a lot of great memories as a child. However, when I turned 12 years old, it's like my life was turned upside down. Within my 12th year, 3 things happened that really changed the course of my life. My parents were divorced. Sometime after that, my grandfather had committed suicide. We found him there. And then within that same year, I was raped by 3 of my neighbors. I knew 2 of them quite well. One of them I didn't know so well, but I knew of him. He had recently been in prison and gotten out. I was just walking home from my friend's house. I've been swimming over at her house and walking home when they started to talk to me, and I went into the house primarily because one of the men there, like, I knew him. He was a family friend. I had been over to his family's house swimming and jumping on the trampoline, and they even fixed dinner and snacks for me sometimes. And so I knew that family well, and so I really trusted him, and that's the reason that I went into the house. Well, things changed almost immediately upon me entering into that home. They left me pretty much helpless in the street. Later, where my brother found me when he came home with his girlfriend, and he carried me into the house, and they called 911, and then my brother went to go take care of the problem. My brother was furious, understandably. So I felt then that all of the innocence that I ever knew was taken from me. At that point, I became really bitter and angry. It broke my trust in men and in people, and I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to process it. My family tried to help as best they could. My parents sent me to therapy. The case went to court, and I had to sit before my abusers and strangers, people that I didn't even know, and relive that night by sharing my testimony in front of all of them. And that in itself was very traumatic as well. Needless to say, they were convicted. They served time in prison. And their life went on. My life didn't go on because I had harbored unforgiveness for the next 20 or 30 years of my life. I carried around this hatred and anger and unforgiveness towards them. Because I didn't know how to deal with the pain that I was experiencing, I began to self-medicate. At 13 years old, I was doing drugs. I'm in the 6th grade. You know, I'm doing hallucinogenics. I'm dropping LSD and smoking weed and drinking a lot of alcohol, smoking cigarettes. And I was just basically searching for things to make me feel better. I fantasized about death a lot. I wanted to be dead. I couldn't understand why this stuff was happening to me, why it had happened. I was so angry. So I attempted suicide several times. It just felt so dead and numb. Like I just wanted to die. I didn't want to live anymore. I was cutting. But yeah, throughout my 20s, I was in and out of jail. I went to jail a lot. I got put on a 10-year probation when I was 21 years old. I had my daughter when I was 21 years old. A short time after that, I got married. And it was a really, really volatile, rocky marriage. Very unhealthy. And I had a son out of that marriage. I won't go into this video, perhaps some other time, but I lost custody of my son. After I lost custody of my son, there was just this emptiness that came into my life. And that's when I turned to using methamphetamines. Because I literally could not cope with losing my son. My mom was always there for me, and she helped me with my daughter. You know, she helped take care of my daughter. I'm so grateful for my mom because she was there when I was not around, when I was just being selfish and only focused on me. And looking back, like that was my whole drug addiction and my whole life back there. Everything revolved around Rachel and how Rachel felt, and Rachel needed to numb the pain, and Rachel was hurting, and Rachel was a victim. And even though I struggled on drugs, you know, with her, she was like my savior back then. Like she gave me purpose into my life. And when my son was born, it's like I even had more purpose. And when that was taken from me, I just could not emotionally handle what was going on. And that's when I turned to meth, started using meth. And I was on methamphetamines for probably 10 plus years. Started out snorting it, then I was smoking it, then I started injecting it. Just living that whole lifestyle, stealing from, you know, my family, making really poor choices, not caring about anyone but myself, and getting that my next high, you know. I was so tired of that lifestyle. I was so tired. I had so much shame and guilt that I carried because I would leave my daughter with my mom for days, you know, and I didn't have my son, and I felt like such a loser as a mother. I mean, who loses custody of their son? And it's not like what you think. I didn't lose custody of him because of drugs or anything like that. It's just other things that I just can't go into right now. I felt it was like a huge source of shame and pain for me. And just that was just another level of darkness that just came into my life. Needless to say, when you're using drugs and you're hanging around drug dealers and that sort of thing, you meet some really shady people. Well, this was in my mid-20s, and I ended up, someone had asked me to come over to their house, and I had met this person, and I felt he was a really sketchy person. Like, I'd hung out with some really sketchy people, but he was like next level sketchy, and he really, you know, I just had a really weird feeling about him and knew that I should stay away. Well, I ignored that feeling, and I ended up going over there, and well, he ended up holding me hostage for 3 days, tying me up, injecting me with heroin, and raping me over and over the period of 3 days. I had never done heroin up to that point. I had never injected, at that point I had never injected anything, but I had seen people do it, and I saw what this man was going to inject in me, and I knew that that was a lot. And sure enough, like, I lost consciousness, and I just remember being in this black space, this emptiness, and all I could think about were like my kids, and I cried out to God, and I was like, God, please, please don't let me die. Please don't let me die. Which is kind of ironic, because all up to that point, like, I wanted to die, but then when I was really face to face with it, you know, I really didn't want that. I wanted to be there for my kids, and I didn't want to die so much as I just wanted the pain to stop, and I didn't know any other way than, you know, maybe death was the answer. So here I am faced with death, and I realize, you know, it's not what I want. No, it's just begging God to please save me. And, well, you know, I came back to consciousness, and I mean, unfortunately the terror didn't stop there. We repeated over the next few days until I feel like, honestly, this person realized, like, he wasn't gonna kill me, and so he just let me go. Like, I wasn't gonna die. I'm convinced with all of my heart that this person had every intention on killing me there. But, you know, God had other plans for me, because, you know, only him and I know what happened that day, or over those 3 days. And, you know, I'm just so grateful that just to be alive and to have walked away from that. Well, after that experience, I feel like this emptiness and this darkness came into my life that I really didn't believe that I could ever escape. It was an emptiness and a darkness that's indescribable, but I really so desperately wanted to get my life together. I wanted to be there for my kids. I wanted to see my son. I wanted to be there to watch my kids grow up, and I didn't have the physical or emotional or mental power or capacity to make a change happen in my life. I had gone to my mom and, you know, told her, hey, I'm on drugs. I remember it was a Mother's Day. I went to her, Mom, I'm on drugs, like, I need your help. And my mom was like, anything, I'll do anything I can do to help you. You know, and we tried. I went to rehab, and I did good for a while, and then, you know, it just, this darkness just came, and it just would always find me again and pull me back. Like, every relationship that I had in my life, I had completely broken that bridge and burned that bridge and destroyed those relationships. I had pushed my mom away. I'd pushed her to the point where she just couldn't handle the stress and the emotional turmoil that I was putting her through, that she ended up moving away, and my daughter and I became homeless. And we were living in my car at the time until my car broke down. The only place that I had to go was this drug dealer's house. This drug dealer that I knew, she said, you know, you can come stay out here. It was a really rural area. So when we got out there, we were kind of stuck out there. And things just got weird. She got to where she didn't want us to leave that place. She wouldn't give us rides to town anymore. And here I am with my daughter. I think she was maybe 10 years old at the time. And I'm just looking around at the people that are coming out there, the things that she's being exposed to. And I just felt this impeding darkness, like something even worse was coming. And I remember standing there with my daughter, and we were talking, and we just said, like, something really bad's about to happen. Like, we need to get out of here. And so I reached out to a family member, and I asked him, like, would you please take my daughter, just temporarily? Because I knew she was absolutely the only thing that I had left in my life, because I had lost everything. And he talked to his wife, and he had to come back to me, and he said, you know, I'm sorry, but I cannot help you right now. And when he told me that, it was like the last straw. Like, that's what broke in me, and I completely broke down at that point, and I realized that my daughter was in this situation because of all of the choices that I had made in my life. Because see, up until that point, I was blaming everyone for my problem. It's always someone else's fault why I was in the situation that I was in. But then I was in that moment, I realized, okay, my daughter's life is being ruined because of my choices. I need to change, and I don't know how. And I never felt so broken in all of my life. And I sat there and I just cried out to God, and I was like, I'm so sorry for running from you all of my life. I need a miracle. There's no way out of the situation. No one would help us. We're stranded out at this drug dealer's house. We don't have a vehicle. We can't walk to town. I knew something was going to happen. I was, God, please just help me. Like, send someone. I don't know. Help. Well, it wasn't even like a few days later, this 18-year-old boy comes. His dad was the drug dealer's boyfriend. I had seen him before when we had talked and stuff, but on this day when he came, he said, I don't know why I'm asking you this, and maybe it's really weird, but would you like to come to my grandma's house with me? I'm going over there for dinner, you and your daughter. And I was like, yes, like anything to get out of here. Yes, I will go. And so my daughter and I went over there, ate dinner. Then afterwards I was sitting out in the garage, I'm smoking a cigarette, and the grandmother comes out there and she said, you need help, don't you? So yes, I do. And she said, well, I don't know how to help you, but if I can find you help, would you accept it? And I said yes. And she said, okay, where you guys came from, I know what goes on in that place, so you don't ever have to go back there. She said that she would send her grandson to go and get our things, and we never had to go back, and she would find us help. Well, I think this was on a Saturday. She went to church the next day on a Sunday. And then she came home and she said, okay, I've met a lady. There's a lady who has a ministry. She helps single moms, drug addicts that are coming off the streets, and she's willing to help you. Would you accept her help? I said, yes, anything. And so we packed up our stuff and they took us over to this lady's house. Her name is Jackie. Her husband is Bob. She had a ministry called Stand in the Gap Ministries. And when we drove up to their house, it was so incredibly intimidating. This is like $1 million home, this beautiful house, and she's standing out the door and she's welcoming us in, and I didn't want to go in. That was like a very hard threshold for me. I felt so unworthy, so dirty and filthy and grimy. I felt so defiled. And her home just seemed so clean, and there's just so much like purity in that home, you know. And I just felt like I can't go in there. And there's just all these thoughts like, what if I disappoint my daughter again? You know, what if she gets her hopes up once we get in there? And you know, but I just had to take that risk this time. And they were just so loving and so kind, and I did not understand. Like, they didn't know who we were. Why were they being so loving to us? Why were they opening their home to us? You know, they didn't know who I was, and it was just such a huge threshold for me to step over. Well, I went ahead and went in. We went in, and they just started to shower us with love. You know, it's just an unconditional love, which I hadn't experienced in that way before, because she didn't know who I was. You know, my mom has shown me a lot of unconditional love, but that type of love I had never experienced. You know, and I felt so undeserving of it. And I'm just so grateful. Well, their church started to help us. They have a huge benevolence program. And they got us new clothes, gave us, you know, food, gas cards, you know, ended up helping get us a vehicle, found a foster family to take us in, you know, until I got on my feet. And so this other nice, wonderful family opens up their home. They had 2 kids in their teens. And they gave us a room in their home. And we went and stayed with this foster family, you know, for a while. And they really were great to us too. Well, needless to say, my life started to change and turn around. I had believed in God up to that point. I've always been a spiritual person just because of experiences that I've had that have really been a solid proof for me. I tried not to believe, honestly, in God, but like I've experienced so many things that it's like I personally can't deny it. And just so you know, I just wanted to tell you, I know I have a lot of atheist subscribers, and I want you to know that I am in no way at all trying to convert anyone or anything like that, but I can't share my story without sharing that huge part, because that's really when my life changed. So I'm just sharing this to encourage people, and definitely not to try to convert anyone. So our lives really started to change rapidly, like so rapidly that my mind couldn't even catch up with it. And one of the another huge turning points in my life was when this minister came and he said to me, do you have anybody that you have unforgiveness towards? Oh yeah, like almost proudly, you know, like yes I do, as a matter of fact, here, and me just start naming them off, you know. He said forgiving them isn't saying that what they did it's okay, but it's just releasing them. So I decided to forgive these people because I wanted to be free from all of that hatred and anger and everything that I was carrying around all of my life. You know, because he explained it to me in a way that made sense. Like, their life is going on, your life is staying in one place, and you're being weighed down by all this baggage because you're holding on to something you need to let go of. So once I let go of all of that forgiveness is really when healing started to come into my life, and my heart just started to be healed. It was a really great and glorious time in my life. I really started to be healed so much in my heart. Relationships in my life started to be healed. After I got off the streets, I was 1 year in Austin, and then 1 year later I moved to Dallas. A lot of really powerful things started to happen, and there was so many other illnesses and sicknesses and stuff that my body was physically healed from. Well, in Dallas is where I met my ex-husband. I've shared with you before that I was married to a Finnish man. He was there visiting this ministry from Finland. We met and we were married. My daughter and I moved to Finland and lived there for 4 years. And while we were there, I went around and shared my testimony, similar to what I'm sharing with you now. And we had a ministry. Had a prayer and worship nights twice a week. We held them in Turku. And eventually I ended up stepping away from ministry because I got really burnt out. My life at home was total opposite from what I was preaching, that how our lives should be, and I felt like a hypocrite. And so I thought, okay, well, if I can't put into action the things that I'm sharing, that we, you know, about love and forgiveness and all this stuff and unity, you know, to other people, if I can't make that happen in my own marriage, then I don't need to be preaching about it. So this is where it gets a little tricky for me. So I was a part of this church. They were the ones that sent us out to be missionaries in Finland, and so many amazing and powerful things happened in my life in that church. I think in the beginning that church was great. It was going really well. Somewhere along the line, I feel like they lost their way. It had turned more into like a cult instead of a church. Thankfully, I started to question it. It took me about 7 years. I was part of that church for 7 years, and during that time, you know, we lived in Finland for 4 years doing ministry there, gave up ministry, came back and I was going to this church again, and I just started to notice things that were off and things that just didn't sit right with me. The pastor became really controlling and manipulative, and it just started to open my eyes to things, and so I started to have questions. And when you're in a cult-like environment, it's not okay to have questions. You're considered critical, like you're being critical, you're trying to be divisive, which was just so far from the truth. So ended up getting kicked out of that church. Shortly after that, got divorced. I really feel like I was way too emotionally immature to have even gotten married. All of that stuff was completely rushed. You know, me going to be in ministry only a year after coming off of the streets, getting married only a year after, you know, having gone through all of that stuff. This is the hard part of my testimony. Whenever I've shared my story in Finland and before the divorce, you know, it always was like, okay, yeah, like God did this in my life and I have this ministry and here I am, and you know, that was the end of my story. I don't know how to transition, you know, from that to where I am now, because after being a part of a cult, finding out that you're part of this Christian cult, you know, and it's a religious thing, and you're honestly with your heart trying to serve God the best that you know how and do things right, it's really damaging to a person. And it's like all these things, like, what did I believe? Why do I believe what I believe? And I just kind of questioned so many things. So with that said, I don't know where I am right now as far as my beliefs, my religious Christian beliefs, whatever label you want to put on it. I just try to be really careful there. I believe in God because there are just too many things that I've experienced, especially the way things happened for me to get rescued off of the streets to be to this point where I am right now. But yeah, so I'm now currently married to my best friend. I have the first healthy relationship that I've ever had in my entire life. I mean, like, you know, intimate relationship. If he is absolutely my best friend. We work together in this marriage. It's not hard. It isn't hard. Like, you always hear like marriage is hard, marriage is hard. Yeah, marriage is hard because you yourself have to put yourself out of the way, and you can't be number one. I just wanted to share my story. It's been such a radical transformation. Like, I am not the same person that I was. Never ever do I desire drugs. It's literally like I am a new person. I love myself, and I think that was one of the biggest breakthroughs that I had, was the starting to love myself. And let me know what you think about this video in the comment section. I appreciate all of you that listened to my whole story all the way through. There's so many details that I had to leave out for time's sake. This is already a super long video, so I really appreciate it if you watched it all the way through. If you know someone who's hurting, if you know someone who needs help or just some encouragement, please share this video with them. It was through me hearing another lady's story that had went through very similar things that was actually the thing that gave me hope enough to keep trying, because I had tried so many times before and failed so many times. I really was completely discouraged. But when I heard that lady's story, tears flooded from my eyes, because hope filled my heart for the first time that maybe maybe my life could change. And I also wanted to add, all of my relationships within my family have been restored. You see that on my videos I spend a lot of time with my dad. That's one relationship that had become estranged. My mom and I are best friends again. My aunts and uncles, my kids and I have a great relationship. So there's hope. Don't give up. If you have any questions, if you need anything, please contact me through my Instagram. If you want to send me a private message or anything like that, I'll be more than happy to talk with you and just to be there for you, because you know what? You are not alone. You don't have to cut yourself. You don't have to hurt yourself. And you don't have to hate yourself. You don't have to live a life full of hate. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care.